Implementing the intro. To set up our intro, we will use the trigger system built into Scapex. Select Scenario from the toolbar, then Edit Triggers. There are no triggers currently in the mission, so click the Add button to add a new set of triggers. The first box seen sets the side for which the trigger is run. Since the trigger should apply generally to only one side, let's apply it to the player side. So leave the box checked. Click Next to proceed. Next, assign conditions for the triggers. Conditions are events or states that must occur for a trigger to run. Since our trigger in progress is for the intro of our scenario, we will want it to go off right away. To do this, the trigger will be made to be time-based. Click Add on the right side of the dialog to bring up the conditions list. Click in the combo box and scroll down until If elapsed game time is quantity frames is highlighted. Select it and click on the blue text. In the quantity dialog that appears, we must set the total elapsed game time in frames that will pass before our trigger runs. From the several options that appear upon clicking the combo box, click At Least Quantity. Click the blue text again, enter a number directly into the field, enter 240, which at 30 frames per second will take roughly 8 seconds. Click OK on each box until reaching the first dialog box labeled Conditions. Now we will set trigger actions. This is the intro, so we want Persephone to appear and explain what is going on in the scenario. Click the Add button. This brings up a dialog similar to the Conditions dialog. Click in the combo box until reaching the trigger Speech Actor Speaks Text, Timing Sample Spec. First click the text that reads Actor. This defines who is speaking, in this case Persephone. Select God from the list, click on God again, and click Persephone. Click OK, then again to return to the action. Next, click Speaks, and then choose the Says option from the list. Type whatever you wish Persephone to say in the text box that appears. Do not use the return key while typing, as Scapex will automatically justify the text for you. Finally, click Timing. Choose Auto Timed from the list. This will cause Persephone's message to stay on screen for a length of time determined by the length of the text. Click on the text that reads Sample Spec. Select the Sample None option from the list. This will make it so that no voice sample is played for the message. You can record your own samples and use them here if you like. Now we are almost done. Click OK once again to return to the main actions dialog. Click Finish and then Close on the trigger dialog. Implementing mission objectives. Mission objectives serve to let the player know what is going on in the course of the scenario. They also tell a player what to do to complete the mission and what he must avoid to prevent losing the mission. It's best to add objectives right after they are given. Open up the Edit Trigger dialog and select our intro trigger in the window. Click the Edit button, click the Add button to add a new section, and then select Enable Mission Objective from the list. Click the blue text marked Mission Objective, click the Add button, and then enter the text you wish to be shown as the mission objective. For this scenario, let's use something simple such as Defeat Ambassador Buddha. Click OK to return to the mission objective dialog. Our objective is listed and a check mark is next to it. This check denotes that the objective will be shown as soon as the mission begins. Uncheck it so that the mission objective is displayed after the trigger is run. Implementing encounters. Now let's set up an encounter with some enemy creatures. Locate the Pyromaniac and 2 flame minions that are placed on the map. In order to implement an encounter, we will have to use location markers. Select the item tool from the toolbar. Next, expand the category marked Miscellaneous on the item palette. Select the marker item and place one down in the middle of the enemy creatures. Place another marker a little bit in front of the Pyromaniac. We shall now edit the properties of the 2 markers. Now that we have the Properties dialog for the first marker on screen, let's go to the Marker tab. Enter Ambush Area into the description field and then 150 into the Major Radius field. Use the item tree to click on the next marker. We will enter Wizard Stand Here since we will be telling the single player wizard to go to this marker. Now close the item dialog and open the Edit Trigger dialog. Click on the Add button to start a new trigger. We will want this trigger to apply to the player, as we will be giving orders to his units. Click on the Next button. We will be setting this trigger off when the player's wizard enters the large marker area that we just created. Select the condition that reads, if side spec commands entities at location. Click on the text that reads Side Spec. Select the expression marked Side. Now click on the text that reads Side. Click on the side designated as the player and click on the OK button. Click OK again. Click on the text that reads Entities. Select the expression Creature. Click on the text that reads Creature. Click on the selection marked Single Player Wizard and click on the OK button. Click on the text that reads Location. Select the expression Marker from the list and then click on the text that reads Marker. Select the marker entity that we described earlier as Ambush Area and click on the OK button 3 times. First, we'll want to do a little cinematic for our scene, so we will have the game enter cinematic mode. Select the Cinematics Start action from the list. A few things to remember about the cinematic mode. The screen will letterbox and all controls will be taken away from the player. Any orders that creatures have will be interrupted. AI will be suspended, and all orders and AI will resume as they were when cinematic mode ends. Next, select the action that reads Pause for number frames, and set the number of frames to equal about 60, or roughly 2 seconds of game time. Pauses at the beginning of the cinematic mode are vital to let the player get comfortable with the fact that his control has been usurped, and it's time to watch a cinematic. Now we're going to tell the single player wizard to move to a specific spot. Select the action that reads Order Creature Order. Click on the blue text that reads Creature, then select the entry marked Single Player Wizard and click on the OK button. Now click on the text that reads Order and select the expression Go to Location. Click on the blue text that reads Location and then choose the expression that reads Marker. Click on the text that reads Marker and select the marker that is labeled Wizard Stand Here. We have now set up our order to the wizard. Click OK to continue. We are done with this particular trigger, but we need to use another trigger to continue our encounter. Click the Close button to continue. Start the new trigger by clicking on the Add button. Leave it applying to the player and click on the Next button. As with our last trigger, select the condition that reads If Side Spec commands entities at location. We will set it up the same way we did the condition for the previous trigger. But instead of referencing the marker noted as Ambush Area, we will reference the marker noted as Wizard Stand Here instead. This will cause the trigger to come into effect when the action from the previous trigger causes the wizard to enter the Wizard Stand Here area. Click the Next button to continue. Select the action marked Set View Origin from Location, Focus to Location. This action will control the camera, so we might see the scene from a perspective other than the wizard's. Click on the first line of blue text that reads Location and choose the Creature expression. Click on the text that reads Creature and select the Pyromaniac from the list. This will set the camera's origin point from slightly behind the Pyromaniac. Click on the second line of text that reads Location, once again choosing the Creature expression. This time we will select Single Player Wizard from the list. This will aim the camera at the single player wizard. A few things to note about the camera control. First, it will only work during a cinematic, and secondly, all cuts will be instant unless the Set Camera Speed action is used. Next, we will add a pause action, say for a few seconds. Once again, this allows the player to adjust to the new perspective before more action takes place. The first thing we want to have happen in our little scene is for the Pyromaniac to say a little something to the wizard. Select the Speech Actor Speaks Text Timing Sample Spec action from the list. Set the actor to be the Pyromaniac, and have him exclaim, "Turn back, foolish wizard, or we will be forced to kill you." Now we will put in a little pause, say 30 frames. For dramatic effect, we will switch the camera again, putting the origin back onto the wizard where it usually is, and aiming it at the Pyromaniac. This will prepare us for the action that is coming. Next, either by duplicating the previous action or by setting a new speech trigger, we will have the wizard respond with, "It's you who will be killed." And again, by duplicating and modifying a previous action, we will have the pyromaniac respond with a final "so be it" to the wizard. Pause the trigger again to give the player a little more breathing room, say 60 frames. This will prepare the player for the end of the cinematic. Now that we are done with the cinematic, the only thing to do is add the cinematic's end action. Now the pyromaniac and his friends will attack the wizard as the AI kicks in. Okay. Victory and defeat conditions. So we almost have a complete scenario. The last things we need to do are put in a victory trigger and a defeat trigger. Let's start with the defeat trigger and then do the victory trigger so we can end on a high note. Open up the Edit Trigger dialog and add a trigger. It will need to apply to the player since it will be causing him to lose the game. We have decided that in this mission, the player loses the game when his altar has been desecrated. Checking to see whether or not this has happened is easy. We will just check to see if he still controls an altar. Select the condition that reads, "If SideSpec does not command entities," and click on the text that reads SideSpec. Select the side expression and choose the player. Next, click on the text that reads Entities and choose the Quantity Structure Type expression from the list. Click on the text that reads Quantity and choose the expression that reads At Least Quantity. Click on the text that reads Quantity, choose the expression marked Number and enter the number 1. Click on OK until you get back to the screen that reads At Least One Structure Type. Click on the text that reads Structure Type and choose the Alter entry from the list. Now simply select the End Mission in Defeat entry from the list, and we have created our defeat trigger. To make our victory trigger, we will clone and modify the defeat trigger that we just created. Make sure that the defeat trigger is displayed in the Edit Triggers dialog and click the Duplicate button. Click on the Edit button and tab to the Conditions section. Edit the condition and change the side being referenced from the player to Buta. Click on the Actions tab, hit Edit, and select End Mission in Victory in place of End Mission in Defeat from the list. Hit Close, and you are done. Now you have put together a very basic mission in Scapex. Experiment with the various triggers, and you will see that you can do some very complex things quite easily. For more help, please refer to the supplemental Scapex manual included with Sacrifice.